everybody, from sunny California. We are in California right now, and this is the beginning of an experiment. So in all of this Fairchild comparisons and tube talk, there was one thing mentioned from a gentleman, Jason Anderson, that was kind of a challenge, and I'm up for a challenge. I enjoy a good challenge, so I'm here to initiate this challenge. I have my trusty assistant here, Sagan Potter Valentine. Say hi.
Hi.
So we're hanging out here in California, doing stuff like this, and actually today we're going to go to the California Science Center, aren't we? Yeah. What are we gonna see there?
A rocket ship.
Yeah, the space
It's
shuttle
a real
Endeavour.
rocket ship.
The Space Shuttle Endeavour. It's a real rocket ship they have there. So, okay. So Jason Anderson said this. He said, I'd love to see you do a video experiment where you order 8 tubes from them being a tube place, I guess, without them knowing who you are, and just stick them in an UnFairchild and see what happens. Haha. And so, you know, based on our experience that I've described in those Fairchild shootout videos, you know, it's theoretically it should work. I should be able to buy 8 tubes and put them in a UnFairchild and have it work, you know. So that's what I want to do. I'm gonna do the experiment, see if that actually works. And so I shopped around a little bit. I checked Tube Depot and the tube store, and then Antique Electronic Supply. They seem to have the best price on them. So I have put 8 JJ 6386 tubes in the basket. Okay, fine. You're gonna have to give me just a little bit of space here. In the cart. So here is the cart. You can view our cart. So there's the cart, right? See, 8 of these things in there. What do you think? Should I get them?
Yeah.
Yeah? Okay, cool. Then we'll do it. So I'm going to order those tubes. I want to order it now because we're in California now. Hopefully they'll show up next week, because I'll have time next week to actually do this experiment and see how it goes. I want them to arrive sometime next week so I can do it. Okay, so here we go. I'm going to hit check out. And I created my account with Antique Electronic Supply a long time ago and used my given name. So in theory, they won't know who I am. My given name is Eric Dodd, not Eric Valentine. And so I don't know. I don't know if they would even care. But okay, so I'm buying these tubes. It's going down next week. We're gonna do the test and see how it goes. All right, I will see you for test time when the tubes show up. All right, bye. Okay, so here we go. I'm back in Vermont, and the box of tubes showed up. I've got my camera phone turned around so I'll be able to see what y'all are seeing. It's early here. I just, when I realized the box showed up yesterday, I'm just super excited about this. And so I woke up early. It's like 5:30 in the morning here. I got an hour before I have to get my son up for school. So we're going to start this process. I want to unpack these things. And I want to try and do this in a way that will eliminate any question about whether these are actually the 8 tubes that are going to be installed in the unit and ultimately calibrated up, matched, and all of that stuff, and put in there, and it'll be what we hear. And so I got to do this all in one shot with no edits. I'm trying to really, make this as whatever. So there's no way that there can be any confusion about this. So what my plan is, each one of these tubes has a serial number on it. And so I want to open up this box. This is, here, I'll turn the camera around. You can see it. Here is the unopened Antique Electronics box that just, showed up. Here's the little thing there. You can see, 8 JJ, 6386 is there. It is. So let's open this thing up. and we'll just document what the serial numbers. I'm gonna try and not cut myself here. So sorry, you're gonna have to endure some of this clumsy stuff. I'm not gonna edit anything out here. No chance of this getting me swapping out tubes or something, like I just want to do this for real. Okay. So here they are. They each come in their own little box, all neatly put in there. Okay, so let's see. Where is the serial number? We're going to have to establish that. Is it printed? I thought on the original ones that it was printed on the outside somewhere, but maybe it's not. I'm probably going to have to open each one of these in order to do this. Yeah, it's not printed on the outside. Okay, so here's the first one. Okay, so there's the tube, and here's the little sheet that's going to have the test data. And there's the serial number, 6341-L. That's this tube. And so here's this. And on the tube, 6341-L. There it is. So, when we get to the point in this process where I'm putting these tubes into the actual unit, I'm going to line up the tubes so we can see the serial numbers, and we'll know that these are all the same ones that are going in the unit. Okay, sorry, this is a little bit clumsy. So let's do this all here. Okay, so here is the next one. Let's see the serial number here. It is 6261L. There's number 2. And I'm doing it this way because there are going to be parts of this process that are just going to be way too slow and excruciating to do in real time. And so I am going to have to stop this video and do a bunch of stuff. My plan is to go through the process of looking at these test results and showing how to use this information to create your matched sets. Okay, so 5736L. So there's tube number 3. Okay, try to keep all these together. The serial numbers are printed on the tube, so I can always, be able to keep track of what tube goes with what test results. Okay, so here's the next one. So here is 5559L. Okay, here's the next one. Pull out the sheet. Okay, here we go. 5570L. Okay. It's funny, everybody's so used to this Instagram and YouTube version of existence now. It's like when you actually do something in real time, it's pretty excruciating, isn't it? But it's important in this case, so we're all gonna have to just endure it. Okay, so here's the next one. So this is 5565L. Okay. So it seems like these are at least, somewhat similar in whatever batch, Antique Electronics, bought these as a larger purchase, and so they're somewhat close. Okay, this one's in the 6,000, 6179-L. Okay. So what is it? 1, 2, 3. Okay, I think there's just one more. And here it is, the last one. Okay, so 5254-L. There we go. All right, so those are the 8 tubes that we have to work with to put together matched sets and have hopefully a great sounding UnFairchild. And so my plan with this is I'm going to go through the matching process. I thought this would be a good opportunity to just go through that process, and not necessarily with the spreadsheet algorithm that we use when we're doing large amounts of tubes, like hundreds of tubes. It doesn't really make sense to do that in this case, because you can do it very easily manually just by looking at the numbers. It's actually really simple, what you're looking for, and you can just kind of look at the sheets and be able to make a determination of like, okay, these tubes will balance each other out, and these tubes will balance each other, and put them into sets. And so I'll go through that process. That might be helpful for any UnFairchild users out there if you find yourself in a situation where you want to get a new set of tubes and you want to just figure out how to just look at the sheets and put them into sets that are going to give you the best chance of having everything line up great and just be good to go. I'm going to go through that process. I will also probably right now, for anybody that just wants to cut to the results, I'll put in a time. I don't know how long this video is going to be, but I'll put it up right now. When I edit it, I'll know. You can just cut to the end and see what the result is and see how well this batch of tubes works. And really, so this is what the issue is that people are saying that you need to buy a lot of extra of these tubes to get ones that will match up well. And that has not been our experience. When we purchase large amounts of these things, we're able to get matched sets with little or no waste of tubes at all. And so I aim to prove it right now by buying only 8 tubes and having only those to use to come up with my 2 match set for, a stereo unit. And I'll, go through what, how this all works and, how to match the tubes up. It's really not that complicated, and I think the whole thing is a lot more forgiving than people make it out to be. And we'll see what happens. We won't know until we get to the end. I love a good challenge. So here we go. I'm going to start getting all this stuff ready. I'm going to pull this unit out of its rack, this one right here. I have to do it anyways because I'm getting ready for AES. Here I'm at the beginning of setting up a booth. There's always a million things going on. And so I'll pull this thing out. It'll be much easier for me to, swap tubes around and do stuff. There's some other testing that I wanted to experiment with this. The whole thing of, talking about all this tube stuff again, it just got me interested in the whole thing again. And there's always room, to try and improve and refine how this is being approached. So there's some things that I want to experiment with in this round to see if there's any way to sort of improve how these things are being looked at and considered and matched and put together to make great sounding compressor sets of tubes. So there you go. All right, I'll see you in the next clip. Okay, so I want to start this whole thing by just taking a look at these test results that you get from JJ when you buy the tubes, so we can look at this stuff and start to get an idea of how you can use this information to match up a set of tubes. So I have 2 sheets here that are kind of a good example of really what you're looking for. So I'm going to turn this around. Look at the sheets here. Okay, so these are 2 of the tubes out of the 8 that I bought. So we got whatever this is, 5254L and 5736L. And so a lot of this stuff, so this is the voltage that's going to the plate. This is the voltage that's going to the filament or the heater. This is the amount of current that the filament is drawing. And then these are the different test conditions here. And so this is a negative voltage going to the grid that as you increase the negative voltage, it increases the amount of compression, the way the tube's being used in a Fairchild circuit. And then you get these different current values for each of the triodes that are in this dual triode. So, you see this series of numbers. These are results based on, the amount of voltage that's being put in here. And so it is the difference between these two numbers that becomes significant. So if they're really different between these two sides, that's where you can start to get some weird artifacts in the compression. And then they've sort of simplified it. They've distilled these two numbers down in this column. It's labeled dB because what they did is they took these two numbers, converted them into a ratio, and converted that ratio into a dB. So they basically took the first number, divided it by the second number, took the log of that, and then multiplied by 20. That's how you convert it into dB there. And so then these numbers really sort of like sum up what you're looking at. And so, if you have, let's say, so this is, only minus 2 volts going to the grid is probably a relatively small amount of compression. I don't know exactly how that would translate into, dB of gain reduction, but it's going to be a small amount, some small amount. And so you have this value, which is just representing, it's just sort of a distilled number that's representing the difference between the current on the two triodes, the plates of the two triodes. So then there's, so you have this number here, and this number by itself isn't really that significant. Like if there's a large number in here, all of these Fairchild circuits have a balance control. So, this thing right there. And so if you have an imbalance here, so in theory, like in a perfect world, this number would be 0. That's what you would want. And then the two sides are perfectly balanced. But if they're not, you can adjust for it with this control right there. And you can put the two sides in balance. Okay, so you can adjust for it. That's not a problem. Here's where it gets tricky. As you start traveling through greater degrees of compression, this number is changing. And so you can't change the balance setting at different amounts of compression, right? So you put your tubes in, you set your balance, but then if all of a sudden when you have 15 or 20 dB of compression, if it's then now out of balance, you can't be adjusting the balance while there's signal going into the compressor, triggering compression, and now it's out of balance. You can't really adjust for it. So that is really what's important with these numbers, is how it changes across the different amounts of compression. So then here's the next consideration. So the thing that was really clever about the Fairchild circuit is that they didn't just take one varimu tube and put it in there, and you would be sort of stuck with whatever the properties are of that tube. They put 4 of them in parallel. And those 4 tubes in parallel will average each other out. They can offset each other. So if one is sort of trending in one direction, you can pair it with a tube that's trending in the other direction, and it will keep them in balance when they're added together. And so that's why I grabbed these two, because it's a really great example of how this can work. You can see this one is trending in a positive direction in the difference between the two plates in the tube. And then this one is trending in the negative direction. And if you pair these two tubes together, they end up balancing each other out. And the balance across all of those different amounts of gain reduction ends up staying really quite balanced. And then you start to run into the question of, like, how far out of balance really becomes audible and becomes a problem. And so that's what we'll look at with this whole thing. So so that's what the sheets look like. So for anybody that's going to go and buy some tubes and you get all of these test sheets, that's really how you start to optimize it. And so I'm going to now, what I did is I took just these values, because this really sort of summarizes all of this other stuff. All of this other stuff doesn't really matter that much. You can really just work with these numbers here, and they'll tell you everything you need to know to put together some good sets. And so, so what I've done is I have taken those values and put them in the computer, just these dB values that they came up with. And so I have them here, and I've matched them up in different ways. So I put together two sets that, in theory, would be like the most optimized. It should sound the best with these particular 8 tubes that were purchased. And then I have one, and I actually had two options of that. We can hear both of them, but I think they'll both probably work fine. And then the bottom here, I did it. What if I did this the worst possible way and see what that sounds like, to have things be as out of whack as possible. So I'm gonna shift things around. I'm gonna put the camera on the little holder here and set things up so we can see this screen, and I can sort of talk about how I matched up these tubes to get my two sets. So let me switch things over. Okay, so I want to first just show this the spreadsheet that I put together for this. This is different than the sorting, the matching spreadsheet that Ian McGregor did for Undertone. That's really specifically when you're trying to sort hundreds of these tubes. You don't really need that when you're just doing, you have 8 tubes and you need to optimize them into two match sets. And so I thought it'd actually be more important, instead of using that and hitting the match button, it makes more sense to kind of talk through this, because when you get these tubes and you have, like I was showing the sheets, you can just look at those numbers and quickly sort of ascertain like how these things are going to, pair up and be cool. So this is the spreadsheet, and all I entered in here is that dB column that I talked about, and I've put them together in these sets. So these are the 2 tubes that I showed the sheets of. And so you can see this one trending towards the negative side, and this one trending towards the positive side. So these two balance each other out in a really great way. And then these 2 tubes are sort of similar in that same way. So this one's trending sort of positive as you get more compression. This one's trending sort of negative as you get more compression. And then these were the other 4 tubes, and they also sort of trended in similar ways, not quite as good of a pairing, I suppose, but so you end up, this one sort of trended positive towards positive 3. This one trended towards a negative 2. This one kind of stayed more uniform, drifted a little bit here, but then this one was a little more uniform, trended more positive. So, on this one, when you look at the sum of these, and really the way this seems to work, when I've actually been tweaking with this stuff, like this number here, what ends up happening if this is on the positive side, then the balance control would be more counterclockwise from the 12 o'clock position. And let's say this tube here, you would have to set the balance control more clockwise from the 12 o'clock position. And when you put these 2 together, it probably will end up pretty much in the middle. And so it isn't a thing where, like, if you had this +3 and this +3 together, that they're additive in that way, where they would end up the equivalent of +6 being that far out of balance. What ends up happening is that these 2 end up averaging together, and so they end up just, it adds up to being the same calibration of being sort of on the +3 side of things. Boy, I don't know if I'm explaining this particularly great, but and so basically, at the end of the day, if you pair these 2 tubes together with this amount of compression, the balance setting would be same for them individually, and it would be the same when they're paired together. Maybe that's the clearest way to explain it. And so what I ended up doing here with this is sort of like the sum of it is adding these four numbers together and then dividing it by 4. And so you get sort of an average of these numbers. And so it starts to show a trend in a particular direction. And so, this is what I think is going to be the best matching for these 8 tubes when we put them in the UnFairchild. And then this was sort of an alternative version where the matching between the sides of the triodes might be a little bit better, you know, like this looks really good here. These are all very low numbers. Ideally, you'd want this to be 0 all the way down the column, but that's impossible. And so you want them to just be as low as you can get them. And then the issue here is that the overall gain, the other thing that I did is I took each individual tube, put it in, powered it up, let it warm up for 5 minutes, and see what the gain of each tube is in the Fairchild circuit. And I took note of that because the overall gain for each channel will end up dictating how well the two channels match together when you're in like a stereo linked mode. And so we have this one seemed to be the best balance of everything that you're trying to go for. So the average balance of everything for these 4 tubes ended up pretty close to the overall balance of, or the overall gain of these 4 tubes. So these are pretty close, whereas this is a little further off. And I think that would probably give you more issues matching when you're using it in stereo. And so I think here we go. This I'm going to put them in based on this, and then maybe after that we'll do like the worst possible version. So you can see here, you know, I paired together all the tubes that are trending more positive, and so the difference in the balance setting between here and here is much more significant than it is on this one. You know, this is only like a 0.3 difference. This is a little greater. This is like a 0.8 difference here. But this, you know, is like almost a difference of 2. It's like a 1.9 difference here. And the greater the disparity between how you'd have to set the balance here and how you'd have to set the balance here is really the issue, because as signal level goes up, or you start to turn up the threshold and you want to have more compression going, you would need a different balance setting here. And most things, you know, all the source material, it's not just a continuous sine wave tone, it's things that are varying in volume all over the place. You know, drums have these huge transient peaks and those giant spikes in level, and so the amount of compression is changing all the time, and you can't be adjusting the balance all the time. You have to set one balance setting for all of these different amounts of compression. That's where this becomes a problem. And so we'll be able to hear what that sounds like versus this type of thing. So, okay, so here we go. I'm trying to do this so we can see the serial numbers that we'll know they're the same serial numbers that I just pulled out of that box. We'll put them in this thing, just calibrate it up real quick, and see what we get. So here we go. Okay, so here's the tubes. These are the sets that I had put together. I want to see if we can actually see these serial numbers on here. So this first one is, yeah, it's a little hard to see these. So the first serial number is I guess 5736. So this is going to go in channel 2. Okay, and then we have, this is 6179. So we'll put that in here. Welcome to the world of real-time life, where I don't get to edit out all the boring stuff. Okay, so this one is 5559. So we'll put that in here. Okay, and then here's this one, which is 6341. Yeah, you can read that pretty good. Okay, we'll get that one in there. Okay, and so then here's the channel 1 tubes. So this is 5254. I'm gonna check these as I go just to make sure I haven't screwed this up. Okay, and then here's this one, which is 5570. Yep, that's channel 1. Here's 5565. Yep, that's in there. Channel 1. Okay, and then here is 6261. Here we go. Okay, so, okay, 62, 61, yep, okay. So here we go. Let's power this thing up. We're gonna have to warm this thing up for a little bit. And so, you'll see the gain reduction meters pop up here once they sort of they've stabilized enough to come to life. And there we go. We're gonna have to do a little bit of calibrating, get all that to line up right. And it's usually good to let it, warm up. For this, I'm trying to save some time because we're doing real-time stuff. I wanted to like have the continuity of like seeing the serial numbers of the tubes, put them in there, turn this thing on, do a quick calibration, and hear it and see what we get. So we know that these are the tubes that I just got out of the box. They're going in there, and this is for real. And so I'm going to wait like 5 minutes, but really like the tubes will continue to stabilize for the first like 30 minutes, It takes a little while to do that, but for the purpose of this, we'll cut that a little shorter. Okay, so let's start looking at what we have on the calibration side. Okay, so I'm going to adjust the balance for this first channel here. Here we go. Get that down there. Here's the balance for this guy. Okay, yeah, there we go. There's that. Okay, and then we can start looking at some gain. I'll probably check these a couple times, just because it's still warming up. But let's see here. Okay, there's our little test tone. Okay, so I'm set at our our sort of factory default setting here, -12 input gain, and then you just calibrate this thing for unity. And so I got some meters I can look at in the computer, get an actual number on it. And so then, okay, here we go. So we get this guy. I gotta get the meter to catch up here. And so you can see already, like as they're warming up, the level sort of, slowly comes down here. Yeah, so that you can see that first channel is slowly, the level is dropping as it warms up. Okay. Yeah, there's this channel. Kind of chasing this thing a little bit here. Okay. So we got that. Let's check our balance again, see if that's moving at all while we're yeah, that still seems pretty happy in there. Okay, that looks pretty good. So now we can start doing our zero out our gain reduction thing here. Do that. Dun dun dun. Get everything all happy here. Okay, and so still, yeah, so with the gain, we can still come up just a tiny bit with the gain here. Okay. Dun, dun, dun. Okay, looking pretty good. So then one of the things to check out is this issue of if the balance is going to change as the amount of compression changes. So if I turn up the threshold here, there's a tiny little movement in there, but it's pretty much staying down. Yeah, there's a tiny little movement in there. And we might even be able to see that if we look at the sheet. There might be a spot where there's a slightly higher number. Let's look at that. So yeah, so it's possible that on channel 1 we're seeing this range, you know, where it's this 0.3, 0.4, 0.3. You know, there's a little bit more of a difference in the balance there. And that might, you know, explain why that needle moved a little bit sort of in the span of introducing compression. So there it's coming up a tiny bit. You know, in a perfect world, that needle would stay all the way down. Here, let's check channel 2. That one's staying down really good. Maybe a tiny bit of movement right towards the end of it, but. And then what if we go even more compression? No, yeah, that one's staying down really good. So for any of you UnFairchild owners out there, that's a really good way just to do a quick check to see if these tubes are staying matched through the whole range of compression. That's really kind of the only place that you run into problems, because you know you can adjust the balance for just about any imbalance in a particular tube, but if it changes through different degrees of compression, that's where you get into trouble. And you can see that the balance controls ended up very close to the 12 o'clock position. This is just barely clockwise of 12 o'clock, and this one is just barely counterclockwise of the 12 o'clock position. So we're very much in the middle of the range of adjustment. So the way these tube sets are adding up is very close to being, you know, sort of balanced in the middle of the range of the adjustment. And so, you know, the sets are actually really well balanced already. So I think it's time to hear this thing. So I'm going to put the camera back in this little holder here. Let's see if I can do that. Okay, and then turn off this test tone. And let's see what we got. Okay, so we'll start with no compression. Here we go. Let's see some level. Okay, so there's the signal just going through it. Okay, so now let's start to get some compression going. Still balanced. Yeah. Actually, I'll do, as it was warned, I'll do one last check of the levels. Okay, yeah, so we drift a little bit more, so since we had more time for it to warm up. So here we go. Okay, that should be pretty stable now. And then redo our little gain zeroing thing here. Okay, so again, there it is, no compression. Okay, so there it is, a little bit of compression on there. Okay, let's see what we got. Now we're starting to stomp on it a little bit. Turn this up for a second so I can hear it. That sounds pretty sweet. Okay, so Okay, yeah. So I was in individual mode. So now we're stereo link. Let's see how the two sides are matching up here. Yeah, we're matching up really good between the two sides, so that, you know, matching the gain, the overall gain of the tubes is really what helps improve that. And, you know, so that's a good amount of compression. You know, the gain reduction meter is bouncing anywhere from like -7 all the way down to -20 on the more significant peaks. So that is a healthy amount of compression on there. And it's cool sound. I mean, you know, I use these things all the time. That's what it sounds like. You know, like that's what I expect this box to sound like. Here, I'll you know, bypass it here. You can hear the difference with and without. So that's the original sound. There it is with it. You know, it's cool sound. So let's go really crazy, because we're peaking at probably around, you know, +20, but let's go past that. Let's see how bonkers we can go. Okay, so now at this point, yeah, that's good. I'm not hearing the stereo image like fluctuating around and stuff. And this is with the gain reduction meter. Just here, I'll show you. Just pinned down, you know. So that's, you know, well over 20 dB of compression in there. And yeah, so there's the output level. See it? And there's the balance. Staying down, that's definitely what you want. So I would say that was a success. That's what I want this thing to sound like. That's what I'm used to. And you know, you can do all the fun stuff here. You know, let's get back to more main. You know, do all the cool, like, slower attack, faster release kind of vibe. You'll hear this thing smack on it a little more. Yeah, I think it sounds great. That's what I would expect from a whatever well-matched set of tubes. So now I'm going to power the thing down, let it cool off a little bit, and I'm going to swap these tubes around. Let me stop this. And do what is, in theory, the worst possible pairing. So all the tubes that are trending to go in a positive direction with the greater degrees of compression are put together. And then all of the tubes that are trending to go in a negative direction are all put together. So all of them are sort of reinforcing the imbalance that they might have. And you're not really taking advantage of using tubes that are trending in opposite directions to balance themselves out. And you know, have the combination of 4 stay balanced through all of the varying amounts of compression. So this thing here, this bottom version, this should be the worst that these tubes can sound. Let's see what happens. Okay, so I got the tubes swapped around, so now we got the worst possible combination in theory. So I've been letting it warm up a little while, so I don't have to try and just talk endlessly while it's warming up. And so here we go. So I'll get our test tone going. Oop, let me turn this back on. Boop. So right out of the gate, you can see that the balance setting is definitely going to be different now. Like this thing is pretty far off. So, okay, so I need to go this way.
And you can see now that this knob is more, probably all the way at about 11 o'clock, definitely counterclockwise of the 12 o'clock position. Let's see, does this one go? Yeah, this one's going this way now. So there we go. Yeah, and that one's definitely further. So I had to make a larger adjustment in order to get it in balance now with these tube sets. I switched things around, so the sets themselves are not sort of canceling each other out as much. And so, you got to make a larger adjustment to get things in balance. And so then, let's see, how are we doing on our overall gain? The gain is coming up here. It's still warming up, so it's dropping 1/10 of a dB occasionally. So I'm going to turn this up a little bit. So I would expect to see, when I introduce compression, to see this thing come up a little bit. And so here we go, let's see. Yeah, okay, interesting. So it's definitely moving. So yeah, so there it goes. Let me see if so if I add more gain, then we get more compression. We get more into that range where you would have to set a different balance. So I could balance for this at this point. I have to set even further in this direction. And so now the balance control is like way over that way to compensate for the imbalance that's happening at this amount of compression. That's where the problems come in. And so, when the balance changes between the sides of the tube based on how much compression there is, that's the thing that you can't adjust for, and that's where the tube matching becomes more significant. So now if I remove this compression, you can see we're way out of balance there, And so there are ways where you could probably split the difference. Like if you had a set of tubes that was sort of, you couldn't get to where you want to be, you could probably just kind of balance between the two and end up in a pretty good place. Yeah, maybe that's what we should do. See how far I can go here. This versus this. Yeah. Because one of the things that's interesting is that the artifacts that you hear are more audible with greater degrees of compression. And so if you even had a tube set that was drifting out of balance, it probably makes more sense to lean the balance a little bit more towards being in balance when there's lots of compression. Because when there's not a lot of compression, the artifacts are not nearly as noticeable. And so, I've kind of like split the difference here. So here's, no compression, and then it kind of nulls out along the way. And then when I get into more compression, then it comes back up again. So that's probably the best sort of average of it. Let's see how we're doing here. Similar thing, starts to come up a little bit as you get into more compression. Let's see if the trend continues. Yeah, a little bit. And so, yeah, so you can just see what's going on here. It's just sort of coming out of balance. I'm going to do these channels individually right now. Make sure there isn't. So I'm going to take that down a little bit so it stays a little bit more. Just kind of average between the two. Yeah, something like that's probably good. Okay. So then let's see how our gain's doing. yeah, we're super close here. Take this down just a little bit. Okay, cool. We'll zero our gain reduction. Okay. All right, so, let's go back to our sort of base setting here. So we'll be stereo linked, just time constant 2. That's kind of where we were, and all this has been DC threshold all the way down. Okay, so there it is, no compression. Okay, I'm going to turn it up for a second just so I can see how it sounded. Not too shabby. even trying to make it as bad as possible, it's I don't know. That sounds okay to me. Yeah. So there it is with the compression. There it is without. Yeah, so it's pretty similar to what it was, even with it optimized. Okay, so now let's go crazy, because this is the same thing. This is like between like 7 and 20 dB of compression, based on how it's metering. Let's go nuts. Okay, yeah. So there I start to hear a little bit of a difference between the two sides. When you get into wild amounts of compression, this is like, well beyond 20 dB of compression. And it sounds like, yeah, there's something in the right side that's just sort of jumping out more in the decay of the compression in there somewhere. So at that point, it starts to be different. It starts to, not having the matching, super duper optimized starts to reveal itself. Okay, so now, let's just hear one side. So I'm gonna do it individual here, and let's just mute. And so you hear a little more of these artifacts in there, these little sort of snappy, poppy, thumpy artifacts. I'm just going to put it way out of balance. It's really not that bad. I think the averaging of the balance setting really helps a lot if you have a tube set that is sort of, drifting out as you add compression. Okay, so let's try this. I'm just going to put it all the way out of this. No. So that's what, a really, really out of balance tube sounds like. You get all these huge artifacts in there, thumping and stuff. And this is with me just intentionally putting it all the way out of balance. And so then let's see. Yeah. You hear some very definite thumping, popping there. Okay, so let's go back. And so now, let me just put it back to what our sort of optimized balance setting was. Yeah. So still, you know, once you actually adjust it properly, these tubes are, I think, would still be totally usable. You know, even with them being intentionally mismatched. So, so there it is. Bought 8 tubes on Antique Electronics. Got them here, pulled them out, looked at the sheets, went through the process of just eyeballing the best way to pair these things together. I put it in the spreadsheet so it'd be easier to sort of show and explain, you know, the thinking behind it. Put the tubes in, calibrated it up, and it would unquestionably pass, you know, our testing for sure. And to my ears, you know, I've been using these things forever. That definitely sounds like what the UnFairchild is supposed to sound like, without a doubt. So, you know, I think these tubes are doing great. You know, I'm not sure why there is this perception out there that you have to buy this massive overage of the tubes, you know, and I could have probably put these tubes in any combination and they would have been fine to use. And so, so there it is, you know, it was the question was asked, what would happen if you just bought 8 of these tubes and put them in and you see what you get? And there it is, you know. I really, you know, don't know how else to say it, but it just really hasn't been a problem. It continues to not be a problem. You know, I was happy to take this on just because I know how it's been going for us, and I wasn't really that concerned about it. I would say JJ Tube Challenge was accepted and tried, and I would say this thing passed and the JJ Tubes passed, you know, so good on them. So hopefully that is helpful for anybody out there that's considering all of this, really what the experience is with these tubes, and you know, might feel more comfortable or confident about using the JJ tubes. When we went to the JJ tubes, we did make small adjustments to make sure that this circuit was really optimized for these tubes. And a lot of what I've seen online are people taking these tubes and putting them in an original Fairchild. The original Fairchilds were optimized for the tubes that were available at that time. These are not exactly the same as those tubes, and we had the luxury of being able to sort of optimize it for these tubes. Maybe that's part of the difference, you know. It just makes it so everything is in a range that the tube is happy with, and so the tube it just, you know, performs in a comfortable place. So there it is. UnFairchild JJ6386 Tube Challenge. There you go. All right, I'll see you next time. Bye-bye.